Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to go over round one of the 2022 Rochester Championship. This is an over-the-board event, 60 minutes per side with a 30-second increment. And it's kind of a cool setup because the top 6 players who qualified for the Rochester Championship were put into a round robin. That means every player plays every other player in the section once. We have 6 players. Here they are. The ratings range from about 1750 all the way up to 2250. So these pairing numbers are randomized. I'm the 4th seed, but that doesn't mean I'm the 4th rated player. I was actually the highest rated player. So I'm about 2250, and we'll go through the ratings of the other players as we get into their games. But in the first round, I'm pairing number 4. So I was black against Vihaan Pendse, and he's a player from Rochester that's rated 1850, or actually it's 1898 going into this game, and he's a 5th grader. Super talented player, very nice kid. This is the first time that I really got to interact with him. And he chooses to play e4, and we jump into a Kxh. After d4, d5, knight c3, takes, knight f6. So this comes out of our Kxh course. We recommend knight to f6, and after knight takes f6, e takes f6. This is called the Tartakower accepted. And in the Tartakower, black takes on these doubled f pawns, so it looks kind of strange. It seems like white should have all the play here. And if you look at the Stockfish eval, it does show an advantage for white, but in practice, this is pretty close to an equal game, especially when you let the engines run deep or look at Grandmaster play. So black does get a lot of dynamic play in compensation for the double pawns. We see knight f3, bishop d6, bishop d3, castle, all pretty standard. Rook e8, rook e1. So this was kind of my first think where I wanted to figure out, okay, my opponent's offering me this rook trade down the open e file. In the Tartakower, as black, you want to be careful not to trade off too many sets of pieces. And one thing I wanted to do in this game is keep a little bit of additional play on the board. So I decided to play bishop to e6, avoiding the rook trade. My opponent plays c3. Nice solid move, guarding the d4 pawn. Knight to d7. And usually in the Tartakower, this knight wants to head to f8, and then to g6, and then it can start to eye these dark squares, h4 and f4. So that's kind of the plan. Close up the center, reroute that knight around to the king side. Queen c2 by white, knight to f8. Here comes the knight. Bishop to d2. Queen to d7. So the reason I play queen to d7 is because I thought a good move for white would be bishop to f5 here, offering a trade of the light squared bishops. The trade of the light squared bishops can be okay, but that's one additional trade where we want to be careful not to trade too many sets of pieces. So queen d7, preventing the white bishop from coming here. Vihaan plays a4, and I think this does make sense. He has the 4 versus 3 pawn majority over here on the queen side. He wants to start to press that majority, see if he can make something happen. b4, b5, start to chip away at these pawns and maybe create a passed pawn eventually. Here I play bishop to c7, and the idea is I would like to put my queen on d6 and create this queen-bishop battery playing at h2. One thing that I always look at is king safety. I reviewed a lot of games, players, club level especially, so 1,000 to 2,000 rating. One of the biggest factors that can decide classical time control games is king safety. Having poor king safety leads to tactics for your opponent. And if you can get to a position where your opponent has poor king safety, the tactics will tend to favor you. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get my opponent to create some weaknesses with these pawns. I would love to see h3, g3, something along those lines. Oftentimes in the Tartakower, we see h3, and this sacrifice can immediately be a good move. Like let's say h3 is played here. We can get away with taking. And after takes, the move white would like to play, bishop to f1, doesn't work because the f3 knight is hanging. So in this case, there is a way for white to hold equality with Stockfish best play, but oftentimes that sacrifice is just winning for black. So white already has to be a little bit careful about moving pawns in front of their king. Here my opponent sees my queen to d6 move after he plays bishop to e3, queen d6. He plays g3. This is not something that the computer is complaining about. And this is kind of one of the dangers of analyzing with the engine. You want to really make sure you fully understand the position. And I told Vihaan this after the game. When I see g3, I'm getting excited because I noticed this positional weakness on the light squares. This is finally an imbalance I can work with. I already have the disadvantage with having the doubled pawns. I'm sort of waiting to have that first imbalance that I can play for an advantage. Now I have it. I have these pawns on dark squares and I can play against the light squares. Now I brought my queen back to d7. That's because bishop to f4 could be coming, offering a trade. Knight to d2 played, bishop to h3, eyeing this g2 square. Now I'm looking at ideas like f5, f4, seeing if I can chip away at this g-pawn. Also create some pressure down the center of the board. And I'm also looking at ways where maybe I could sneak the queen in to attack g2 or bring this knight into the game. So I want to create as many attacking pieces as possible, right? I want as many attackers coming towards the white king. Bishop e4 played, coming back to help out. So this is a small mistake. And at this point, I should play f5 immediately. I did consider it during the game. And I'm trying to think why I didn't play it. I kept looking at white playing f4 and thinking that would trap in his bishop. But now looking at f5, this looks pretty strong. Like let's say bishop to f3 is played. I could probably play f4 right away. And if bishop takes, pawn takes, now we get that white opened up king. White's only up one pawn, and it's the doubled pawns, which are pretty ugly now for white. So that would have been a good line, finding this immediate f5, and the king is still safe for black. This first f-pawn can push up, and there's still an f-pawn behind it, keeping the king safe. So rook e7 was what I played, trying to double the rooks. On to b4, rook e8, and now Vihaan plays bishop to g2. This was a small mistake just because if you look at the light squares around the white king, this bishop does a pretty good job still guarding this diagonal. So after the game, we did a little post-game analysis. I mentioned that maybe bishop to h1 would be a good move. It looks strange because this king is trapped, but that bishop does help guard the light squares for now. So that was a potential improvement. After bishop to g2, though, I could either snap the bishop off right away, or what I did in the game is I played knight to g6, figuring I could trade later, and if white takes, I'm ready to take back with the queen. And here, white plays knight to b3. This was a blunder. During the game, it wasn't completely obvious to either of us how big of a blunder this was. But once he played knight to b3, I spent a lot of time on this move. I was trying to figure out, should I take here first? Can I get away with knight h4? Should I play queen g4? One of those three moves should be good, but I wasn't sure which one was the best. I started out with bishop takes g2. That was correct. And now here I was looking really hard at queen g4 and knight h4. Knight h4, I wasn't quite sure if this worked. The line I was looking at was g takes h4, queen g4 check. And I was thinking, what if this king tries to run? And the king wants to run away this way. So let's say queen h3 check is played, king e2, rook takes e3, f takes e3, and here I kept looking at queen takes e3 because if king d1, it's checkmate. But the problem was this move, king f1, and white is up 4 points of material. We can see that up here at the top. Black does not have anything for those 4 points of material. There's no checkmate attack here, and we're not winning back the 4 points. The line I should have looked at more closely was rook takes e3, king retreats, queen f3 check, and after rook e2, there's this cool mate. Queen goes here, and if king up, rook takes, check, checkmate. So pretty deep. You know, we started on move 21. This is move 30, so that's calculating 9 moves deep. In this position, I played knight to h4 check, though. Or I'm sorry, queen to g4 instead of knight h4 check. The computer also likes this quite a bit, and it's buying us a move. So as we're going to see, the same tactics are about to occur, but we've bought a move by bringing the queen up. So it's not as risky as playing knight to h4 check. King h1 was played. Let's look at a couple of the other lines. If h3 is played, there's knight h4 check. And if the king goes backwards, I can take this pawn with check. The king goes to h2. I was thinking during the game, knight f3 check. Queen f3 is also a really strong move because that pawn is pinned. So this would be the strongest. Queen f3, rook here, rook takes bishop, pawn takes, rook takes. This rook is coming here. This guy is still pinned by the bishop on c7. It's a forced checkmate in 9 moves with best play. So really there was no way out of this for white. Queen to e2 or queen to d1 offering a queen trade. There's still this knight check. And if the king goes here, we can check on e4 and also threatening mate on g2. So after f3, knight takes, and now we're threatening discovered attack, threatening the rook. That bishop is loose. This is already winning for black. Okay, so back to the game. We had king h1 played, queen f3 check, and g1. And now I play knight h4. This was much easier to calculate, and here's why. With the queen already on f3, after pawn takes knight, see if you can find the move I played in the game. There's another tactic here. I played bishop takes h2, and this is a really clean tactic. There's no other moves for white besides taking. If king f1, I have rook takes e3, followed by the queen heading to h1 mate. So king has to take, rook e4. This threatens rook takes h4 and rook h1 mate. Bishop g5 played. So in the game I played rook e4. This is threatening rook takes h4, king g1, and rook h1 checkmate. White plays bishop to g5, trying to guard this pawn. But now I have rook takes e1, threatening queen h1 check, and also hitting this rook. My opponent went bishop back to e3, and here I played rook takes e3. If rook takes rook, I take back with this rook, still threatening mate. And now I'm +3 on material. So up material and about to checkmate. After f takes, there is a mate in 5. Queen h1 check. Kind of hard to see. If you want to try to find it, go ahead, see if you can solve that. Well, in the game, I played rook to e2 check, which is good enough. Because I'd calculated after this trade, there's queen to b2 in the end, forking rook and knight. Both cannot be protected. So it went d5 here, pawn push, check. Win the pawn. So round number 1, I got the win. And there was also a win in the game between Michael Kern. So Michael Kern was seed number 1. He beat David McNeil. So it was 1 for Michael, 0 for David. And then I got the 1 against 5 seed, 0. And we had a draw on the other board, Master Thompson and Daniel Garrett. We got half here, half here. And then in round number 2, I will be playing Michael. So it's going to be a battle of the 2 players with 1 point to see who can take the lead. So stay tuned for that in the next recap. I think the main takeaways from this game, I believe I played it pretty well. I think for white, not focusing so much effort on the queen side after playing g3, because g3 created this weakness around the white king. But once this knight came over to b3, now the attack got unleashed, and it was hard to see how strong the attack was, but notice how every single black piece is helping with the attack. And white has a lot of pieces that are over here on the queen side not ready to defend. So I think that's the main takeaway. I was really happy with how I played this game. It felt pretty smooth, and I really didn't have much more to ask for. Caro-Kann, Tartakower, I really like these structures. They come out of the Caro-Kann course. So that's round number 1. Rochester Championship tied for first. We'll see you guys in the round number 2 recap. Thanks for watching.